Let's get going. Hi, I'm Ulysses,
And I'm Henry.
and this is Comics Odyssey. And today we're going to look at this obscure, uh, barely known comic book known as The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, we
Um,
had to rescue this from the dustbin of history.
yeah, so now, of course, this is a very well known classic work of comics by Frank Miller, Klaus Janson on inks, and Lynn Varley on colors, and the whole team here actually come together and make an amazing book. Starting with an introduction by Alan Moore, which is very bizarre, and I cannot understand why an editor would even publish this. He
Because his name's
starts,
Alan Moore.
yeah, that's what it is, and this is kind of like a reprint, 1986. He's talking about the psychosexual something or other about, and then he's going on about Davy Crockett, and it's a very bizarre introduction. Um, if I had been an editor, I would have been like, "We don't care about your sexual ideas, Alan Moore. This is a comic book
Right.
about Batman. Like, relax." But he was riding high on a wave of popularity with
Exactly.
yeah, Watchmen. So they were like, "Well, this will sell stuff," and
Whatever he
people,
touches is golden.
yeah, people buy it.
Your
Um,
camera has lost focus. I don't know if that's something that
oh
got
yeah,
bumped or what.
I don't know. Once in a while, there we go.
That's better. That works.
Yeah, here and there, it craps up. Uh, Actually, this was your pick to do an episode on. Any particular reason other than it's a classic of comics?
Yeah, lots of reasons. I wanted to go back to, I don't worship Frank Miller like so many people do, but when I think about his work on this one and on Batman Year One in particular, it's a good example of how these characters that have been around for so long, how they were mythologized. He built Batman into a mythic figure. You could argue that he already was, but definitely something changed when Miller got his hands on him with Dark Knight Returns, and his popularity exploded, of course, and I think he made some changes to the canon, and some of it was good, some of it was very good, and a good idea. Uh, and other stuff that was not supposed to be canonical that was in Dark Knight Returns ended up being that way because everyone wanted to copy him and ride his coattails into greater sales for whatever their title was.
Yeah,
But the mythic aspect of it is what intrigued me enough to like suggest it to you.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, yeah. It was something that was there in the DNA, but he really like kind of amplified it, like and underlined it.
Right.
Starting with this amazing cover, right?
Ain't it though? Yeah.
Just a silhouette with This was actually sold at auction in several pieces because there's the technique of doing the lightning. Uh, there was, it's like, I think sheets of acetate with, like not spray paint, but airbrush or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Look it up. There's
Okay.
this work sold at auction in multiple pieces, and just like the sheet of acetate went for like $3,000 or something crazy like
Holy
that.
cow.
Yeah,
Did not know that.
I don't quote me. I was listening to Rob Liefeld. He's a big collector of original art and is very excited
I
about it.
see.
He has a great podcast, and he was talking about this sale.
Well, he should know.
Yeah,
Well, that
and
cover image. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, please.
Just going to say, you can tell even in that cover image that the way he's drawing Batman in this series is you can kind of infer that he's in his middle age or maybe even entering his elderly years. He's still muscular, but very stocky and less mobile and agile than he used to be. The
Yeah.
musculature is thicker and denser, less pliable, or at least that's what's implied by the way it's drawn.
Yeah. Very brutish.
Yes,
And the interiors largely follows this 16 panel grid, which is masterfully cartooned by Mr. Frank Miller. Um,
absolutely.
this sequence of a car accident, I remember the first time I read this was a long time ago, getting it from the library. And I was perhaps not very conversant in the vocabulary of comics. And I remember being very compelled by this sequence, but I really took me time to put together what was going on.
Uh,
But I enjoyed it though, and
when
I've
this
come
sequence
to
in particular, I'm sorry, you weren't
no,
finished.
please, no, it's fine.
Now finish your thought.
Um, I've come to enjoy this claustrophobic type of composition, and Keith Giffen does that in like in a very attractive manner, especially in his Legion of Superheroes run 5 years later, which someday we'll take a look at on this podcast because it's a
Okay.
great run. But he does that kind of thing, like load panels with a lot of information, but it's
Yes, he
what
does.
he focuses on highlighting matters as much as what's actually like the way it's drawn.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's pretty compelling.
And that sequence over there on the left page is so. This is an interesting choice that Frank Miller, the writer, made. That is so. Bruce Wayne is in his, like I said, midlife or older years. He's retired. He hasn't been Batman for a while. Batman's been gone. Um, and yet Bruce is driving. He's in a race, and so he's still living on the edge, and he's
Yes.
seeking that adrenaline rush, or and you definitely get that impression from the way it's written. And of course, he pushes his car past the limits and cracks it up. And so you got to wonder. I mean, why did he retire um, if he's still a junkie for that adrenaline rush?
Hmm. You can take Bruce out of the bat, but you can't take the bat out of Bruce.
Right. Yeah. And then this is, I think you and James were talking about this, weren't you? How he uses, or how the television screen shape is used
Hmm.
in some of these comics.
Yeah.
And Frank Miller and I think Howard Chaykin, in fact, or Chaykin, I think you and James might have been talking about Howard Chaykin. That it was such a, it was completely easy to recognize what he was doing for readers back then. It might be lost on readers now because who watches television?
Hmm.
And it doesn't look anything like the screen, like the shape of the screens that we use now. But
Just the
he,
shape is an icon. It may as well be like a letter in the alphabet. It so clearly represents a specific thing.
right, and it also it was a nice touch. It was a nice technique to give context for the story, having these talking heads on the news bring us up to date about what's been happening in Gotham and how long the Batman's been gone, and things of that nature. And later on, they're going to refer to Superman, and of course, there's a Cold War escalation to nuclear confrontation that happens later, and the talking heads on the news are going to keep us apprised of that as well.
Now, I do wonder how frequent this technique was used back in the 80s, because eventually it came to be quite common to use that up until the domestication of the internet as a technique for storytelling. um, so I
As
wonder
far
if
as I can
this
tell,
was it like a new thing.
As far as I can tell, the early to mid '80s, it was Chaykin who pioneered this technique, and
Okay.
then I think Miller took it and ran with it, and ever since Dark Knight Returns, it became it became a trope or a what do you call it, a motif? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That a lot of people started using it because it was very effective. It was an effective narration technique.
The caption boxes here, I would have a reflex of putting them in the panel, but he
Hmm.
modifies the size of his panels to keep his caption boxes outside of them, and the result is like there's more dynamism in the panel rhythm, right? It goes like that, boom, boom,
Putting it
boom,
all, he's
boom.
using the gutters.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
like using every part of the page.
Yeah, and that's you got to be like you got to have a lot of presence of mind to do that sort of thing. Um, colors here are almost like a gray scale thing, but the grays
Hmm.
have some warmth to them. I put this in front of my wife, who's I would consider a color expert, and she described the colors as swampy,
Oh,
and
that's yeah, I can see that.
she, she believes that that's a very British thing. Now, I'm not gonna say why, because I don't know, but apparently, like in decor, the British kind of imported that to the West. But you'd have to. I do have an episode about colors in comics on my Substack, which I'll try to remember to link below. And she goes into that sort of thing. She actually knows more than I do with that. With that.
Right, I think I remember that one. Yeah, because I'm always interested in colors because for lots of reasons. I I grew up loving comic books, and I'm an '80s child, so I've never had a problem with loud colors. Apparently, I'm one of the only people on the planet who doesn't. Mm. People are actually offended by bright colors. Usually, most people, it seems like. But so I pay attention to that because I don't like I'm coloring my graphic novel, and I don't want to just go by my instincts, or it's going to be like people are going to be screaming, "My eyes, my eyes!"
Well, it's coming back though. You see a lot. I look at the shelves at the comic shop. You see a lot of people using like neon, like very bold lime greens and pinks and or
Oh, do you?
so, yeah, I think it's like the '80s kind of bleeding back, like a bit of a throwback to '80s fashion or something like that.
Okay.
Um, this is cool introducing Joker, but we kind of focus on Two Face first,
Yeah.
and he's got the panels split down the middle to represent the Two Faces duality.
Yes. Clever. And the two of them, they have a similar arc in that they both, scientific professionals have tried to reform both of them, and they prove unreformable.
Well, it's this guy, this clown of a psychoanalyst who thinks
Yes.
he's like pseudo intellectualizing these guys as you know evil streak. And I couldn't help but think that that guy sounds a whole lot like this clown here.
I was just thinking that.
Which
I was
is not
biting
a
my tongue
compliment.
not to. I was biting my tongue not to like offend all the Alan Moore fans, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Alan Moore has had some streaks of brilliance in his career and is clearly
Yes.
a command of the art form. Yeah, he's talking about, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, he had his well, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
while you're talking about the mythic kind of amplification in this of the Batman character,
Yes.
and he's touching on it here, right? He brings these very primal imagery to the story. descent
Yeah, and
descent to the underworld motif.
I'm glad you we're looking at that um, two-page spread that those pages right now because I wanted to talk about that. So I was a student of Batman going way back every time, and I love reprints. I love reading stuff from the Golden and Silver Age. So I was very well versed in him before I quit reading comics. And I'd read many different versions of retelling of the Batman origin. And I think Frank Miller with this one right here is the first one that had him encounter this bat as a child, as a boy.
This
And of course,
demon.
yeah, that one right there in particular, it's like he's demonic. He looks
Mhm,
demonic. And I
mhm.
think he
Well,
calls him
yeah,
the
there's
warrior
like
bat, right?
a fire in the mouth. I mean, it's
Exactly.
clearly
Like it's a,
pushing that mythic dimension of this creature.
and that really jumped out at me when I first read it. It's like he's almost a fire breathing dragon bat.
Hmm.
Um, and in some point in the narration here, if I remember right, he calls him the warrior bat.
The purest warrior.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so this segment where he went back in time and had Bruce as a child and have this encounter and like suggested a fear or a phobia of bats. This has been used so many times since then. It's been used in Batman Begins, in well, I don't know how many, the movies, more comics like this. And I want to, if you got time, I want to do a little deeper dive
Hmm.
into Batman's origin
This is
because
all about it.
yeah, so in the golden age he'd had a few adventures in detective comics and it became obvious that he was going to be a very popular character. So I don't know exactly what happened in the bullpen, but someone decided let's give him a one page origin story. So it's probably been reprinted 1,000 times, but it's called Batman: Who He Is and How He Came to Be, and it very briefly summarizes how his parents were murdered by a criminal and how he vowed revenge, and he spent his life he dedicated his life growing up, teaching himself police science and perfecting his body with weight training and all this.
Hmm.
And then there's this scene where he's sitting in his study and for some reason he uh, left a window open, one of those old fashioned windows I guess that you'd find in a mansion back then.
Is this the Golden
And
Age thing?
yeah, it's the golden age what I'm talking about right now.
Actually, I think I
And
have it.
okay, even better. So he's musing to himself as he's sitting there in his study as Bruce Wayne.
Do you know in which
And
issue it is, or?
uh it might be in dang, I can't but give me a second. Let me see.
Yeah. So
Be
I've
right back.
got, yeah, I've got these reprints, Detective Comics 27, because we could look at it, and that would be cool. 27 to, yeah, and then the 27 to 39, and then it jumps to Batman having a self-titled magazine. And so this is all the early days of Batman, 1931 to 1940, 1939 to 1941. So we got,
It's going to be in one of those, I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
We need the Jeopardy music to play while I'm looking for this. Oh, my bad. I called it a one-page origin story. It's actually two pages. See if I can find an attribution here. You took me literally. Thank you.
We'll find it.
So here, the way the way it is here is at the very beginning of the very first Joker story.
Okay.
which I don't know if it was originally there or if they like
That
pasted it
narrows
in
it
for this
down.
edition.
What was the first Joker story in Chicago?
Once again, a master criminal stalks the city streets, a criminal leaving a web of death around him. Trying to find what comic this came from.
Batman #1. That makes sense. It makes sense. It would
Might
be in
be.
Batman #1. Um, Batman #1, 154.
Yes, that's the story. So there it is right there. Okay.
Okay. We got it.
All right. So it shows the murder of his, and this is all very efficient storytelling. I mean, that's the easiest way to to give him a motive for what he does. And then on the next page, I believe he's sitting in the study.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, down.
yeah, I've definitely
Yeah.
seen that before.
Yeah, see down there at the bottom left panel,
Mm-hmm.
he's sitting in his chair musing. Criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot. I must become something black, something terrible, something. And then the next panel, a bat flies in through the window.
Mm-hmm.
A bat. It's an omen. I shall become a bat.
Smash cut.
Right. And there he is.
Yeah. Thus is born this weird figure of the dark, this avenger of evil, the Batman.
Yeah. And I loved him back then. He wouldn't like come up with some complicated scheme to outwit a criminal. He'd just march into their headquarters and bust a chair over their head.
Right.
So
you're relating this to this this appearance of the bat here.
Yeah, so this is something this is a phobia or a obsession that Bruce carries around.
Child.
Yeah. And as he grows up, let me share my screen with you now.
Okay. This is good.
This is from Batman Year One, which is also Frank Miller. So we're picking up the story here. He went out. He doesn't know exactly how he's going to fight this war on crime, but he knows he can't. He has to disguise himself. They can't know that it's actually Bruce Wayne doing it. So he dressed it up like a disabled veteran and went out and tried to break up a street crime, and he got in trouble. Someone stabbed him in the leg. The police captured him. He had to escape from them, and so now he's talking to himself. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to wait, but I have to know how, Father. How do I? So he's talking to his dead father, like he's having this conversation with them. Yeah. And I want to talk about Alfred in a minute, but I'll just mention here. He says, "If I ring this bell, Alfred will come. He can stop the bleeding in time. Another of your gifts to me, Father. I have wealth. The family manor rests above a huge cave that will be the perfect headquarters. Even a butler with training in combat medicine." This was a new wrinkle. So as far as I know, Miller's the one that came up with this. Well, I'm 99% sure Miller came up with making Alfred a former combat medic. And then here we get to a familiar scene. He's sitting in the study. Of course, he wasn't bleeding in the one originally, but he's still talking to his father. Says, "I'd rather die than wait another hour. I waited 18 years, training for this war on crime," and he needs some kind of edge. And then it goes into the flashback, and they added that, he and his mother and father had gone out to see Zorro at the theater, which is a nice touch. Zorro's one of the characters that inspired Batman. Here's the scene with Joe Chill, or whoever they're saying the killer is in this issue. And famous picture there with Bruce mourning his parents. Man, and then he's back to him. Back to him sitting in the study trying to figure out what his edge is going to be, how he's going to make these criminals fear him. And the bat doesn't just fly in an open window, he smashes through this window. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't even have to say it's an omen. It's like a religious experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
This warrior bat that has a grip on his soul. I don't want to exaggerate it too much, but this warrior bat that he has this connection to, that scared him, terrified him as a child. He's telling him, this is the way. this is what you need to do. This is how you're going to put the fear of God into these criminals.
Mhm.
And then he rings the bell to call Alfred, because Alfred can stop the bleeding. So I thought it was a really, and of course this has been used over and over since Miller developed this.
So,
But it was
but
really,
what year was year one published? I can't
I
remember.
think it was, I think it was 87.
So
It was,
not so after Dark Knight Returns, because
yes.
if you unshare your screen there,
Oh,
we'll
sorry.
compare with that bat with this one here, right?
Yeah. Biggest difference
So
is this one's got fire in his mouth, or
yeah,
something glowing like fire.
so he had a stroke of inspiration here of the bat busting through the window, which is a reinterpretation of over here.
Right
Of
there.
this panel here, right?
Yes.
So he makes that that epiphany more violent, more shattering, more uh, like like shocking.
Yes. And there have been so many retcons and reboots and retellings of his origin story that they're getting tiresome now. But this
Yeah,
is one that I think was justified. He actually improved on the original, in my opinion.
yeah. Uh, I remember being quite stunned by these, like how he's constantly reliving. Because here he's drinking, which is uncharacteristic of Bruce, and he's
Right.
turns on the TV and he sees like uh Zorro's on. He's like, it's just a movie. There's no harm in watching a movie. Look at his expression here. You know,
Yeah.
that's an, that's amazing. That's just communicates so much there. And he starts to have flashbacks to the murder of his parents.
Yeah. He's never gotten over it,
Yeah,
even in his elderly age now.
this
And I
is
can
just
attest,
yeah,
um, the psychology of it. Yeah, obviously, he's obsessed, and I'm not a nocturnal predator, vigilante or anything,
sure you're
but
not.
at least not that I'll tell you, especially with the camera rolling. But I've lost some people.
Hmm.
Um, I've lost loved ones very dear to me, who died tragically, and there are little things that I can, like the way he's triggered here by seeing Zorro, and it brings back all these memories, and
Hmm.
he's horrified remembering them. I can
Hmm.
attest that that does happen. That there's definitely a strain of truth in the
Yeah,
way Miller presents it there.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's certain things that just just very suddenly will just jar you right back to when that stuff happened. Yeah, and it can be quite an overwhelming experience.
Yeah. There's another technique that Miller didn't invent it. He didn't start it, but it kind of became standard after Dark Knight Returns, and that is having the character narrate in caption boxes
Hmm.
rather than using thought bubbles. It's like maybe a throwback to the old hard-boiled detective movies where
Yes, no,
they use
very noir.
voiceovers a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I hadn't thought of that. That is a throwback to the noir movies that Miller liked. Um, I do like the thought bubbles, though.
Yeah, and I'm using them too. And I'm using whisper balloons, all the stuff in the arsenal. I don't care if it's outdated or not. And I use some um, narration and caption boxes. So I'm
Well,
using all of it.
th thought bubbles are something that you don't really get in the other mediums, right? Which
Right.
it's you can have a telepathic link with the character.
And like you said about the TV screens, it's so iconic now. I don't know about millennials and homelanders if they would understand it, but if you just see the shape of a thought bubble
Yeah.
in anything, in instruction manual or on the TV or whatever, you automatically know that that's the symbol of someone thinking.
Hmm.
There's
Um,
you got.
this book, I find the pacing's really good. Like, so it's this 16 panel grid for the most part. That he does break up a little bit, but this like ultimately is still 16 panels. He just shares real estate, across multiple panels.
Yeah,
But mostly a 16 panel grid, and it goes for several pages, right?
yeah,
Until you finally he lets you have this satisfying splash page, and it's such a treat when you get to that when it just like opens up, right?
yeah. So what eye candy that is. That's just
Beautiful.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
And again, you can see Batman's kind of thick with age, but I'm sure he has more fat content than he used to, but he's kept in shape. I mean, that is how old he's supposed to be, 50, 60. That dude is, he is solid.
It's got old man strength.
Yeah.
And in this book, I find, the sound effects are not really that exciting, they're pretty basic, but there are some moments like this. This is such a cool sound effect here, right?
Uh-huh.
Wump with the sound reverberations going through the sound effect.
Yeah, he's using them. It's not so, it doesn't draw that much attention to itself, but he's using it in a new way that you didn't see all the time back then. You didn't see very often. And you were on a page just recently where the onomatopoeia was rumble. And oh, yeah, crack is a good one too.
Yeah, he does that,
Like,
here at the top of the
yeah,
page.
that is the image. The image is within the sound effect.
Yeah, exactly. So the sound effect is like the panel. The
So he's kind of
rumble.
revolutionizing that too. There it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just seeing that just now, I realized I did something similar uh, in my graphic novel, and I thought I was making it up myself, but I guess subconsciously I was probably remembering this, and I unknowingly plagiarized his use of that sound effect. But I have it just like he has there. I had it extending, past into the boundary of where it should stop to give the impression that this is a continuous noise.
It's called
It is.
inspiration, Henry. See, this is still in keeping with his 16 panel grid, but he's doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right.
Yeah, he's and doing a masterful job of it too. Of course, it's not exceptionally wordy, but he's fitting a lot of information on that page.
Hmm. And I'm noticing just how much Zack Snyder inspired himself from this book. But there's a famous scene that Zack Snyder did of Batman fighting a bunch of guys in a warehouse, which is it's got this
Yes.
thing going on where he busts through the lower floor.
Yep. Oh, and I love that scene too. I think that was in The Batman, wasn't it? No, it was
It
in
was
Batman
in
versus Superman.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that scene. That is like the 1989 Batman movie was for most of that movie he didn't strike me as really Batman, but there's one scene where he's fighting some of the Joker's henchmen, and there's this one big dude with a chain who's just wearing Batman out and knocks him down this hole around the bell in the belfry, and he disappears, and the bad guy looks over the edge, and then you see Batman's legs come up and like trap his neck between his ankles,
Hmm.
and he he thrusts his head forward to ring the bell, literally, and it conks him out, and then he drops down through the belfry. I said, okay, now that's Batman. That is something he would definitely do.
Hmm. I remember being quite impressed with this sequence here, where he got a criminal. He doesn't touch him at all. He just goes to his place, and I don't remember why, but for some reason the criminal is already got his bones broken. Maybe some mob guys got to him, and he's just steps away in fear from Batman. And all you see of the Batman here is just a profile here and just a little eye.
Right. Yeah.
And he steps back and falls through the window onto the fire escape and cuts an artery. And the Batman, like, Batman just doesn't even touch him or anything. And just says, hey, you're losing a lot of blood, and only I can get you to a hospital in time. And if you want me to do that, you can give me some information that I want. Right?
Again, very masterful storytelling right there. Just the implication of what the Batman could do to him. His technique of scaring criminals is still working to this day. And yeah, all you have to see is that white outline of the eye in the background, and so much is done by suggestion.
Mm.
I think I
This
used that
is
one too for my helicopters.
this is a good one. Not used to seeing Batman with a gun, right? Zack Snyder used that in Batman versus Superman. You know,
Hmm.
and I kind of feel like director Zack Snyder is taking the piss out of the fans a little bit because um, the fans, kind of gave him heck for, um, being a little edgy, right?
Yeah,
And but so he gives Batman a gun, which is kind of like anathema to Batman. But it turns out
right.
it's not,
That
it's
was a
not a
major
gun. It's
taboo.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
another tool. It's a tool where here he's shooting a line, whereas in the movie he shot a tracker.
Yeah, and later on, I think he actually captures an M60 from a criminal and uses it and blows somebody
Yes.
away. So Miller is what would you say, expanding the boundaries of Batman's morality.
Hmm.
On the previous page too, if you see that splash page there, I keep using the term splash page. Is that the wrong
No, that's
terminology?
what it is. No, that's what it is. Like
Okay,
a full page, no panels.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, Over there, I think in the narration, he talks about the reason why he has this bright yellow oval
Yeah.
around the bat, because
Yeah.
that's where his armor is. So that's where he wants them to shoot,
Hmm.
which is a nice way to retrofit that kind of anomaly into the Bat mythos.
I like when they do that. Like Jeff Johns did that with Green Lantern because Green Lantern, for the longest time, his powers wouldn't work on the color yellow, which is a really
Right.
retarded, it's
I
a
know.
stupid
Yeah.
weakness. But he made it make sense in that, like, there was an impurity in the ring, and that
Uh-huh.
because the Green Lanterns are supposed to be men who can overcome great fear, and the impurity was the color yellow, which was fear. And there's a because the Green Lantern light is just one part of the color spectrum.
Right.
Red, orange, yellow, indigo, blue, all that stuff. And the yellow was the ring of fear, which, and then he developed a whole Yellow Lantern Corps led by Sinestro, and they expressly wielded fear instead of being able to overcome great fear.
I
So,
see.
like, those kind of retroactive, like, reframing of these ideas
Yes.
in the canon is very cool.
Did he do it in a way that was effective enough that you bought it? That
Yeah,
it
no,
it
yeah, I
satisfied you?
yeah, I actually really liked it, and he totally expanded the color spectrum of so, like, the Roy G. Biv, you know,
Hmm.
red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. He gave them all like they're all a specific emotion, and they all had their own faction kind of thing. Whereas
Okay.
red was for rage, orange was for greed, and there was only one Green Lantern in that faction because it's greedy, you know. And it
Okay.
was,
Okay.
yeah, it was cool. It's cool. Jeff Johns, Ivan Reyes, good stuff.
So I blogged about John Burns. I think it was his Man of Steel miniseries back in the
Yeah.
80s,
Hmm.
and he did some retrofitting and explaining there. And the one that I did like, uh, that I thought was clever, and I bought it was, I never really, uh, I always thought it was kind of silly, the whole kryptonite thing, that this this chunk of rock from the planet he was born on, if he was exposed to it, depending on who was writing, it would either take away his powers or kill him.
Yeah.
Always thought that was stupid. But what Byrne did was he said that those kryptonite rocks came from the volcanic core of Krypton, and they were exposed to some kind of radiation down there between the surface that made it poisonous to Kryptonians. I'm probably not explaining it as well as he did, but
Mm.
uh, I thought that was a better, and that would also explain, I guess, the reason why it glows green, why it's
Mm.
luminous.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was like the best. I think it was an effective way to retrofit the logic into kryptonite.
Yeah. This is something that Frank Miller would revisit many years later in Sin City. Um, the black and white with the splash of yellow. It's a little bit odd. It's the only part where that he actually does that, but
Hmm.
eventually he would do that in Sin City.
That's really a knockout image, and it's got that noirish um, aesthetic to it,
Yeah,
almost
with the
like a horror
blinds.
film. Yeah.
Mm, it's great.
I did want to mention too something else I really liked about um, Miller's revamp of the character design is he went to a utility belt that looks more like a paramilitary, with little pouches and stuff in it, the kind of
Hmm.
thing that, like a cartridge belt. Well, not a cartridge belt, but like almost like a bandolier that you wear around the waist. And I thought
Hmm.
that was a nice touch, and it made a lot more sense than the old traditional utility belt with the capsules.
Yeah. This is the sequence we were talking about, which
Yes,
was
yeah,
recreated in Batman vs Superman.
yes.
Or Batman. There's this guy's got someone held hostage basically,
Hmm.
and Batman's been fighting them, and he's got his gun pointed at a little girl. Batman blasts through the wall, commandeers this guy's huge gun, which I think you called an M16. I'm not a gun guy.
But M60. Well, at least I
M16.
thought that's what it was. By
Yeah,
looking at it now, I'm not sure.
take your word for it. And the guy says, like, back off. I'll kill this kid. Believe me. Batman said, and Batman shoots him. Blam. I believe you.
Right. And
This
I
was
was reading
actually a
this.
pretty serious moment because in the coming out of the Silver Age at that point, the Comics Code Authority still holding sway. You're not supposed to kill a guy.
Yeah. Well, notice I'm pretty sure this was not Comics Code approved. And this was
Yeah,
really a major threshold that Miller crossed here by having the Batman do this.
and this was not meant to be in continuity. It was meant to be like,
Exactly.
but it was such a hit that DC felt, like they had to incorporate it. This is an
Yeah.
awesome sequence. Everything in black, and you see these suddenly like the cityscape appear.
The fingers pull away. Yeah.
Turns out it's like he's pulling away the fingers.
Yeah.
That's great.
The
I like
one of the
Batman as a violent, dangerous person. That's I don't like him as a super friend.
Me too. Saying yes, exactly. Although there was a time I had an appreciation for the days when, he and Robin were the dynamic duo and the Batmania and stuff. But yeah, I've always preferred him as the original Vision, the dark vigilante.
Hmm.
The something else from this from Dark Knight Returns is, and I didn't know about the inside baseball going on at DC at the time. I did not I did not know that people hated Jason Todd as Robin. I kind of, I didn't have any problem with him. If he's going to have a Robin, I didn't have a problem with Jason Todd. But he, like in the monologue, excuse me, in the narration that Batman slash Bruce is giving here, he alludes several times to like something, Jason was murdered by the Joker or something, if I'm remembering right. And this was not supposed to be canon, but not too long after The Dark Knight Returns came out, they decided they were going to kill off Jason Todd or get rid of him,
Hmm.
even though it was not supposed to be in the continuity. Here,
I like
Batman's
the uh, the way he expresses Batman getting his bell rung. This is supposed to be an image of this mutant,
right.
um, this character here, but he
Hmm.
can't quite make him out, and his all the lines are shaky and double lined.
Uh-huh.
It's effective.
Looking at this from a writing perspective, plot wise, I didn't like this section at all. I understand that he wanted to give Batman like a failure or something he had to bounce back from. But the guy's like in his 50s or 60s. He should be more wise now than he was in his 20s and 30s. And just he surrenders his advantage to this criminal just on an ego trip to prove to himself he can still beat him one on one, hand to hand. And he finds out that you know combat is a young man's game. Like is So he's not very intelligent, not very wise in this. He's very un-Batman like in the decision he made there.
Just a call back to this sequence here where he's a bit of a thrill seeker.
Yes, yeah, I was going to make that comparison.
That's kind of his arc in this story, where um, he isn't very wise, which not to get too much into the movies, which is what I think that people were frustrated with Batman versus Superman. Uh, where we meet Batman is he's not at a good place, right?
Huh?
And his arc in Batman versus Superman going into the following the Zack Snyder's Justice League, that's his arc of uh, clawing his way out of cynicism and
Yes, yeah,
self-righteousness, if you will, into a more hopeful, faithful person.
yeah,
And I kind of feel like there's a bit of that in here, like um, a bit of insecurity where eventually he kind of climbs his way out of that.
yeah. And I understand for narrative purposes why Miller felt he had to do that. I don't know. I think I would have done it differently. I would not have had him make a stupid,
Str-
foolish
a
decision like that.
strategic mistake, yeah.
Yeah. So he's got it together mentally in his 20s. He's wise enough to and strategic enough to avoid making those kind of decisions when he's younger. And now he's, I don't know, maybe he's the Brett Favre of superheroes.
Well, he does rectify his mistake here. He does um, take on this monster again, but he
Yeah.
doesn't try to meet his force with his force. He plays it smart,
Yeah.
chops at his eyes and uses what his strength to his own advantage. Um, makes an example out of him. Beats
Right.
the guy, which kind of turns the tide of like because he's got a bunch of minions basically, and Batman kind of wins him over by beating their
And I
leader.
believe I believe he says in the narration boxes, he says, you don't understand. He's like talking to, or he's thinking to his opponent. Um, you don't understand. You think this is a battlefield or whatever he calls it, but it's actually an operating table.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good sequence. Where he encounters the bat sort of again.
Hmm.
The wind rises, tearing dead leaves free. Frogs, frogs croak like a cartoon car alarm. Crickets pick up the chorus. A wolf howls. I know how he feels. Like he's back. He's back, baby.
Sometimes
That's
he
a,
goes over the top with some of these lines, but that one's a good
I
one. I
love
think,
that. I love
yeah,
it. Just
I think he
go
nailed the
over the
peak
top.
just
That's
right.
what I say. Yeah, just
Yeah.
fuck it. Just like let her rip. That's what I say. Like I love that stuff. I don't care if it's a trope like storms coming. I still like that line. I just like
Yeah.
it.
If it's done well, and it was done well here, it gives you that. What would it be, a dopamine hit, or
Yeah,
really engages your emotions in the story?
like it's a version of fan service, I guess.
There's a place in year one where he went too far and he made me groan and roll my eyes, and that was for those who are not familiar with it. If there is anybody watching us who's not familiar with it, of course, Commissioner Gordon is not commissioner yet. He's Lieutenant Gordon, and he just transferred into Gotham from somewhere else. And it's kind of a bifurcated story where it follows Gordon's arc and Bruce Wayne's arc. But anyway, so Gordon comes in, he transfers into this very corrupt Gotham PD, and there's this one character who's a crooked cop, and at one point Gordon says, and actually the panel is uh, Detective Flash is like throwing some criminal into a dumpster or something, and Gordon saying, "I recognize the way he moves. He's had Green Beret training." And then later on, he's like, "It's been a long time since I had to take out a Green Beret."
Well, someone with more military
Stay in your lane,
experience.
Frank.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see like that line kind of works on me, but with someone with training in military that would come across a little bit more cheesy or something.
Yeah, that was a bridge too far for me. But
This is the
otherwise, the story was pretty good.
first appearance of Superman in this story here.
Oh, and I
Ooh,
love the way they introduce him, the build up that they give him. It's really, really effective.
rumble,
Because,
rumble, rumble.
yeah, you don't see him at first. He's just a streak of light.
Yeah.
And the talking heads on TV, or like one person's skeptical that he even exists or something. And these news reports are coming in, and the one uh, news anchor says to the other one, almost, would you say it's faster than a speeding bullet? And of course he responds to her, now don't go there. Don't.
Yeah, we see him here. It's like big contrast in the art style, the colors and the stuff.
Yeah.
The big, I don't know, barrel chested you'd call.
Uh-huh.
Got butterflies, which
Very,
was
yeah.
a big motif in the Snyder movies. The butterfly thing. I have a video on that where
Was
I,
it? I
I
forgot
highlight.
about that. I
Yeah,
probably watched your video too, and I've already forgotten about the butterfly.
It's very subtle, like Snyder's directorial style. There's a lot of little, almost like painterly things, like symbols he adds in that
Hmm.
you would totally be forgiven to miss because they just go by, you know. But he just
Yeah.
packs it full of little symbols like that. That I like that stuff. I know tons of people hate that guy. Whatever, it is what it is. Um,
Yeah, he's
but
very
yeah,
much a Boy Scout here.
in this story, he's works for the government.
Yes.
He's on the side of the good guys, right?
Much like the Watchmen, um, only the government has made, masked vigilantes or, masked do-getters illegal, except
Yeah,
Superman has a special arrangement where he's the official, he's the official government agent. And of
yeah,
course, the year is supposed to be about 2000 something, and Reagan's still president. So, oh, Reagan's a monster. He's another Hitler. Uh, he'll never get out of office. And he's like basically skeletal. But yeah, the contrast, he really played up the contrast between the Batman and the Superman, which you should. Many people have pointed out that the fact that they would work together, be partners and friends and stuff is kind of silly.
mm,
And Miller apparently felt the same way, and so he made it clear that these two are would be like oil and vinegar
at
or
odds. Yeah.
oil and water. I messed up that metaphor.
Um, that's a cool word balloon style. I'd never noticed that before.
Yeah, he's pretty innovative with a lot of these stuff. A lot of the stuff we take for granted.
Joker with the herringbone jacket's kind of cool.
Is that what you call that? I've heard of the herringbone
Yeah.
jacket, but I don't know that much about fashion. Even he's
Yeah,
like
I know.
ridiculous
Aren't you the
proportion.
guy who's wearing his shorts outside his pants or something? Did you mention that in one of the episodes?
And you just hit below that belt. No, it's true. I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Batman did it. Superman did it. Why couldn't I?
um,
But even the Joker looks like he's built like an upside down pyramid. I'm not sure that was a choice that was the best for that, but for whatever reason, um, Miller chose it. Right there with the Batman. This is one of the panels you can really see that he's still muscular. He's still in shape, but he's older and thicker,
mm.
contrasted with the little girl who's playing Robin.
So someone theorized about the sequence where um, Batman kills Joker, essentially. Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where is it here? So the Batman, you see his caption boxes are in gray,
Right?
and he's narrating like going after the Joker, and they have this final confrontation where
Mm-hmm.
the Joker is daring Batman to kill him, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you, but like the Batman like breaks his neck, but he goes like, just an ounce or two of pressure more. You could have killed me, you know, but you didn't
Yeah.
have the balls to do it.
And
And
I
then
think
the
he did gouge out
Joker,
one of his eyes, didn't he?
well, he threw a batarang, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
And then the Joker twists and like essentially breaks his own neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what someone pointed out here is that all the caption boxes uh, are gray. Even when the Joker talks, his word balloons are gray. So
Right.
someone theorized that this essentially just happens in Batman's head.
Oh, okay. I assumed that
But
they were going for, they're two sides of the same coin. You know,
yeah.
they're both obsessed with their own mania or whatever. Which, speaking of two sides of the same coin, what they do with Two-Face in here is interesting. If so, the plastic surgeons have fixed um, Harvey's face so he looks normal. But when he looks in a mirror, what he still sees the monster. He sees that
Mhm,
they didn't um, repair the monster side of my face. They took the good side of my face and made it monstrous to match the other.
mhm,
And then when uh, the Batman and Two Face are having a conversation, um, it becomes obvious that like his what would you call that, a illusion, delusion, and um, Batman tells him what I see, or Two Face says, "What do you see when you look at me? Look at what they did. Now I'm completely a monster." And Batman says something to the effect of, "What I see is a reflection." And
mhm,
then you see that warrior bat again with the fire in his mouth, and that's
mhm.
how Batman sees himself. Sees himself as almost as deranged or psychologically broken as Harvey Dent.
So the whole Superman thing here, I think to be charitable, I think like you could say he did Superman dirty, kind of casts him as a somewhat unlikable character, but I think we're
Yeah.
seeing Superman as Batman would see him if you want to be charitable,
What do you
rather
mean?
than how well it's like instead of like it's probably that Frank Miller doesn't like Superman, right?
Yeah.
But you could see it as Superman being this unlikable figure because this is a Batman story. So
Hmm.
our vantage point is through the lens of Batman's world view, if you will. Right.
Okay.
At
Well,
one
yeah,
point here, Batman changes costume. He goes to the gray. He starts in
yeah, and
blue.
without the yellow oval around the bat. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was the first too. Like after that, you started seeing the old costume before the new look in '64. That old costume came back,
Yeah.
and I think
Let's
now
see
it's more
here.
popular than the one with the yellow oval.
Yeah. See if we can get a comparison here. Yeah. So we've got he's here, and
Hmm.
then he goes into the black and gray. And
Yeah.
the black and gray is probably better. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
do
like it
have
better.
a soft spot for the blue and gray, just because
Hmm.
it's very distinctive. You know, like the blue and gray and yellow are color combination that doesn't really belong to anyone else. Um, but
Hmm.
someone made a comment that maybe the black and gray signifies is more for the demographic, whereas the blue and gray is more for a younger demographic. The black and gray,
Interesting.
that's like more grown up story.
Well, and it's more practical too. If you're nocturnally waging a war against crime, uh, the black and gray makes more sense. You don't want people. You want to be able to be somewhat camouflaged, hiding in the shadows and stuff.
I get
And
that.
blue just ain't gonna cut it.
Yeah, I understand that, but like I buy into the whole superhero thing, so
Yeah,
I'm fine with like not everything has like a hyper realistic application, you know. Um,
yeah, I get that too. Yeah, there's a element. you got to suspend disbelief to a
There's
point.
a fine line.
Yeah.
Like if you
I thought
start to
the
overthink these characters, you can get lost in that, you know.
And I'm not sure if Miller actually disliked Superman or for the purpose of the story, he was just associating Superman with Reagan and with America, truth, justice, and the American way. And like pretty much every writer at the big two, he wanted to take a poke at, you know,
Yeah.
the American dream,
Yeah.
America. So the fight between Batman and Superman was, I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of they lifted it and put it in Batman versus Superman the movie
Yeah.
and did it very similarly, and they did it justice. I liked it. The whole thing
Same.
with the whole thing with he came to his senses because both their mothers had the same name. That just I thought that was pretty lame. They could have thought of something better. But aside from that, the way now that was Batman setting him up in that ambush and planning carefully and having the weapons and the know-how and the tactics to defeat him. That was Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
for
can't go
sure.
half-ass it, in a fight with Superman like he did against the mutant leader the first time.
Someday we'll do a episode on Zack Snyder's movies because I think the Martha moment is brilliant, but I know that the internet has told me I'm very wrong about that.
Well, I hate to make it unanimous, but yeah, I'm unaware of what the internet thinks about it, but I thought it could have been something better.
Yeah, you're not alone. Um, Eventually, like Batman dies in this Superman versus Batman fight in this story, and then they have funeral for Batman,
Right?
and then Superman hears like,
He
"You
hears his heartbeat
sucker,
start up again.
you planned
Yeah,
this whole thing, didn't you?"
yeah.
And then we
And
got
I think he even
Batman.
says at one point Bruce was always good with chemicals.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and Bruce is kind of setting up the next generation of vigilantes who will
Yeah, this
eventually take over his mission.
post-apocalyptic resistance movement.
And there's a sequel to this story, Batman Strikes Again. I have read it, and the less said about it, the better, I think.
Okay.
There's something. It's it didn't lightning didn't strike twice. We'll put it that way.
Was it Frank Miller?
Yeah, yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Um, I think there's cartoonist Kayfabe had an interesting video on it that made a case in its defense that I thought was really fair and interesting. But
Uh-huh.
I really only read that story once, and I remember having zero interest in revisiting it, um, as opposed to this one, the Dark Knight
Yeah.
Returns.
It's hard to go back and recapture the magic sometimes. Well, again, this story was meant to be out of continuity. So Miller was allowed to kill off the Joker and
Yeah.
have Batman use a firearm and
Hmm.
have him, in a big duke out with Superman and stuff. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to have a sequel.
Yeah.
He didn't leave room for himself to have a sequel, and good on him for doing that. But I'm sure, when someone showed up with a whole stack full of money and said, "Hey, do a sequel," he's like, "Well, okay,
You're paying me.
right."
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's I was glad that you picked this one. I hadn't looked through this in a while. It was really nice. Kind of reminded me what really cemented my love of comics, like this sort of thing that kind of had me rethink my ideas of what comics could be, and
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's fun
Yeah, you
stuff.
and millions of other people. Yeah, it really did. That's kind of like a very common reaction to it. It took comics to a new level where, you know, I think a lot of people still considered comics for kids at this point. Although if they'd been reading regularly, they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But this was the sledgehammer blow that made them realize, oh, okay, this is a medium that's capable of a lot more than just entertaining adolescents.
And it changed the landscape of comics. Like after this, comics took on a different tone, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse.
Yeah.
Um, I was reading Detective Comics 587 last night, and that is a thing we're going to be looking at. And it's from 88, just a few years later. And
Hmm.
Batman's a completely different animal. And you can tell, like, people are like, oh, like, we get to do these things now. And it kind of like raised the bar and gave people certain freedoms they didn't have before. So, it's an important work of comics. Probably you can go to your local library, and they'll probably have this just because
Yep. Hmm.
it's that culturally relevant.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, that they abandoned the Comics Code Authority not too long after this because they realized we don't need it, and we want to tell stories that that defy that code,
Hmm.
and so they did.
Yeah.
I did want to say something real quick about Alfred, if we have time,
Hmm.
because again, being a one-time aficionado of all this, I read the story where Alfred first appeared,
Yeah.
and he already had Robin, so his ward by that time was Dick Grayson, and they were living in the mansion alone. And one day, this British butler just shows up, and he looked a lot different then. He was rotund, you know, possibly obese, and he was like a comedy relief character. The story, he's like Oliver Hardy. Or, did I get that right? Well, anyway, a big fat funny guy, Fatty Arbuckle or something, and he reveals to Bruce that his family has been butlers for the Wayne family going back centuries and so forth, and now uh, I'm here at your service whether you want it or not. And so they kind of had to accept him, or Wayne felt that he had to accept him, but they tried to keep their double life a secret from Alfred. Eventually, Alfred like bumbled into to finding out, but then that character evolved over time. So I can't remember if it was because of the 66 TV series or something else, but eventually he became a more serious character, and he wasn't, you know, he was more on the thin side later on. And then Miller made it so that he was not just a butler, but he was actually a combat medic, where he had that kind of training. And then in the most recent, uh, I think it was the movie The Batman, they actually had him as former SAS or something in the British Special Forces, and he just happened to be, serving as a ostensible butler to the Waynes. So Alfred has evolved a lot over the years, and now the way the story is told now, Alfred was there from the beginning. He was there when Bruce was a boy. He helped comfort him when his parents were murdered, all that. But that character's gone through a big change over time.
Hmm. Indeed. So that was our trot through the Batman mythos by way of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, inked by Klaus Janson. We didn't really talk about the inking by Klaus Janson, but it is important. So, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all those internety things that the kids have you do. And I am no longer on any other social media other than Substack and YouTube. So I'm counting on all of you to cross post this to your social media feeds if you have them. So that's much appreciated. Consider subscribing to our Substack newsletter if you're listening to this on YouTube. Link is below. You can get these videos delivered to you for free, plus extra stuff, articles. And if you take out a paid subscription, you get even more additional content and access to videos that aren't available anywhere else. So show us some love. We are having a good time here, and we're glad to have you along. So see you in the next one. God bless.
Ditto that.